I'm Eric Parker. This morning on CT21. More of us are getting our vaccine cards stamped. So now what? Could they become our tickets to getting into places like restaurants or businesses? What about onto planes for travel? We're looking into the controversy over vaccine passports. Then getting vaccines to the more rural parts of our state. We're taking a closer look at the efforts to give everyone a chance to get a shot. And in our Sunday spotlight, Hadassah Lieberman, the wife of former Connecticut Senator Joe Lieberman, is sharing her story about immigrating to the U.S. and realizing her dreams. It's all this Sunday, April 18th. CT21 starts right now.
From Channel 3, this is Connecticut's most watched current affairs program, CT21, with Eric Parker. Sponsored by Hartford Healthcare.
Good morning. As of this past week, more than half of the state's adults over the age of 16 have now received at least one of two COVID-19 vaccine doses, and close to 1 million Connecticut residents are considered fully vaccinated. With vaccinations comes the talk about showing vaccine passports to prove you've been vaccinated. President Biden has not indicated he'd support a vaccine passport program on the federal level, but what about states or maybe even private businesses? Is it something that could happen, and is it legal? Here to talk more about that is Dr. Arthur Kaplan from NYU Langone Health in New York City. He's a Ridgefield resident and he specializes in biomedical ethics. Dr. Kaplan, thank you for being with us. So this has to be a hot topic in the world of medical ethics. What do we think about vaccine passports?
Well, it's interesting. I'm talking to you this morning from the beach in North Carolina and traveled here, and no one asked to see my vaccination record, although I'm fully vaccinated as a Connecticut resident. We got to distinguish between two kinds of passports. One is what you normally use when you travel across international boundaries, right? I'm going to have to show my passport to go to England or to go to Italy or to go to Japan or wherever I might go. Absolutely expect to be required to show vaccination status in the months to come for international travel. That means if you do business overseas, that means if you're an exchange student, if you're bringing an au pair to Connecticut, if you're going to have, let's say, tourism. Many countries are going to demand a vaccine authentication. We have it. It's called the WHO Immunization Yellow Card. It's always been there. It lists vaccines on it. It's a supplement to your passport, and it has been used recently for yellow fever. Countries don't want to get into the problem of yellow fever. They demand you show that or they don't let you in. So you can expect with certainty that we're going to see international vaccine passports. Whether the Biden administration likes it or not, they're going to have to issue these things sooner rather than later. Domestically, different story. As I said, I traveled between states. No one's checking my ID or my passports to do that, but I think you're going to see them in the state and private side as well.
I think one of the big questions is going to be who will take the lead on this. I know here in Connecticut, Governor Lamont has said he thinks it's more of a private enterprise kind of thing. I'm a Mets fan. If I want to go see a game at Citi Field, I either need to show that I've gotten my 2 doses or show that I have a negative test. So there is something that's going to be required to get into a lot of places, Dr. Kaplan. Does it make sense for the government to lead the way, or does it make more sense for private enterprise?
Yeah, well, let me say, if you're a Mets fan, you may require a psychiatric evaluation to enter there, but we'll put that on the side. If you are going to go to certain businesses, they're absolutely going to start to require vaccine, I'm going to call it authentication or certification. It's not a passport. You don't need to show your papers whenever somebody wants. But look, we're already seeing colleges in Connecticut and elsewhere say, you got to have vaccination, proven vaccination, to come back and live in the dorm. Makes sense. You wouldn't want to live in close quarters with unvaccinated students. We're starting to see private schools, some in Connecticut, saying you want to come back in boarding school, expect vaccination. And although I joked about it, sporting events, Madison Square Garden, Buffalo Bills Stadium, they're all starting to say you have to be vaccinated to come here. So private enterprise is going to do it. Would it be better if government took a role? Yes, because they could standardize the passport. They could make it affordable. Right now, private sector groups are likely to say, here's your app, use it if you want to go to X, Y, or Z, and they ask for it. But maybe the poor or those who don't have ready access to portable phones aren't going to have the same ability to get places.
Yeah, I liked you a lot before that Mets crack. I'm gonna pick up on what you just said, though, because one of the big concerns, there's two big concerns about this whole issue. One is privacy of health information, and the other is that it might exacerbate the divide, right? We're having so much trouble getting shots into arms in poorer communities. If you then say you need an app, you got to have your iPhone, you got to have whatever to prove it, couldn't that just cause more problems in that area?
You know, I do think we're going to be in a period of time where some people who couldn't get vaccinated, maybe even for health reasons, are going to say, what about me? So I suspect some of these places are going to make an accommodation, like you can come in if you wear a mask. You can come in if you have a negative COVID test once a week. But that's a pain in the neck. It would be a lot easier just to get vaccinated, which would be my recommendation rather than going through all this hoopla. But there may be adjustments made that way. The other thing is, look, I suspect if you said, I want to take a cruise down the Housatonic on a fishing trip, and the guy who owned the boat said, you got to be vaccinated, and you didn't have it, he may just say, or she may just say, can't do it. We may see some two-class access develop.
Is there a privacy aspect to this as well? I mean, so many of us have the MyChart app or some other electronic health record already. Do we need to be concerned about this kind of information being put into a database somewhere?
Well, look, I think people are worried that the vaccine status might link to your health record. It shouldn't. All we need to know is whether you're vaccinated or not. I'm a little worried that, Connecticut government, other states should say you cannot link to somebody's health record without their explicit permission. Maybe you don't mind, but if all you want is a vaccine app, that should be what it is. One other point, let's say we need boosters. That turns out in a year, the vaccines start to wane in their efficacy. We want to be able to find you quickly, right? One way to do that is to have vaccine authentication, have a record. So it isn't just, I don't want people to know whether I'm vaccinated. There's a flip to it. Yeah, I'd really like people to know if I've been vaccinated, with what and when, so they can reach out to me if I need a booster.
Let me take your example of the cruise down the Housatonic. I'm not sure it's such a thing, but let's just say you want to go on, I hear it's beautiful there this time of year. You want to go on a cruise, you want to go on some other travel thing. Do you think by making this a thing, having a app or a vaccine passport that you have to show, it might calm down some of the vaccine hesitancy because people want to do those things?
I do. It's a big incentive to be able to get more freedom, more liberty. Look, many of us have gone to Broadway shows in New York City. They're small venues. You sit on top of one another, basically. The ventilation is lousy, and the crowd tends to be older, partly, I think, because it's expensive. But in any event, it's a high-risk crowd. I can't imagine going back to theater without saying, we're all vaccinated, the actors, the ushers, and everybody who comes in here. They're going to need it for their business. Legal? Sure, because you're basically trying to set up a safety standard so that you protect the public health. It's not discriminatory. It's just saying we're going to be safe. So I think you'll see it. Tourism, cruise ships, there are a lot of industries, hotels that have been beaten up by COVID. The way to get people to come back is to give them more freedom. And that liberty is a nice benefit, if you will, from getting vaccinated.
All right, Dr. Arthur Caplan from NYU Langone. He works in the city, he lives in Connecticut, and he's at the beach on this Sunday morning in North Carolina. We appreciate a few minutes. It was a fascinating conversation. Thanks for being with us. Coming up next, getting a vaccine if you live in one of Connecticut's lesser populated areas. We're looking at the challenges people are experiencing. And later in our Sunday Spotlight, Hadassah Lieberman will join us. That's coming up.